Welcome back to Tales from the Heart, a podcast from the Hypertrophic Cardiomyopathy Association. And this is a Share Your Story edition with one of our HCMA ambassadors, Dino, who is coming to us all the way from Canada. Welcome, Dino, to Tales from the Heart.
Thank you, Lisa, for having me today.
You don't even know this probably, or maybe you do. We are recording this on May 17th, which is 17. Mai, which is the 17th of May, which is Norwegian's Independence Day. And I happen to be Norwegian, at least a quarter, but 60% Scandinavian based on 23andMe. But so happy 17 Mai to all my Norwegian brethren out there. Dino, tell us a little bit about you and where you're from.
I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, born and raised all my life. A big Winnipeg Blue Bomber fan, and I'm a father of 3 children. Be celebrating 30 years of marriage come this September. So I'm very excited about that. I'm a private business owner in the automotive and industrial world. The business I do is we sell automotive spray booths and industrial finishing equipment.
So you're joining the 30-year club. So welcome. I've been here for 4 years. Well, it'll be 34 years in 3 days. I just had to look at the calendar and count numbers here. Welcome to the long-term crew. It actually changes, don't you think? Don't you think marriage changes each decade? Like you're going through a different chapter of your life with that person?
I sure do. It really becomes a different love. Every decade, it changes.
It changes. It evolves. The world evolves. Our kids grow up. Poof. So we could do a whole podcast on being a 50-something, married 30-something, but that's not the focus of this particular podcast. Here we are to talk about a particular disease state and how it has impacted you. Tell us a little bit about the first time you heard the words hypertrophic cardiomyopathy.
Well, I was searching around on the internet and I saw this acronym HCM, and I was like, well, this is a very big word. And what does this all mean? It really opened my mind to, wow, this is something I never heard of. And it's so rare. And is this possibly what I have with the conditions? It was very overwhelming.
Why were you looking up the word hypertrophic cardiomyopathy? Were you feeling symptoms or had somebody given you some information about your own heart?
I had some troubles that started in 2017 where I had passed out at my cottage. And from that time, I had some tests done on my heart. And they told me I had a mild enlargement of my heart, which really wasn't anything that concerning, considering that part of your heart feeds your legs and your arms and your lower extremities, and the other part feeds your brain. So one that's the longer distance, it's kind of normal for the heart to be a little bit enlarged. And so it's fine, not have to worry about it. But I started to have short of breath, and anytime I put my body under load, I was really getting some chest pain. And it didn't have to be much. I could notice a 2% incline that would affect my heart rate was really disturbing.
So you notice these symptoms. This doctor's told you, oh, your left ventricle is a little thick. And what's that, about 2017? As you were doing that, I was getting a new heart. So we were on parallel journeys in opposite countries doing different things. When did you start to say, I think I need more help? I shouldn't feel like this. How old are you now?
54 currently, turning 55 this year.
You were, in your late 40s as you were feeling this and something was going on. So when did you say, this is a little bit more than just a little thick heart?
Yeah, well, the symptoms continued to persist. And my wife and I were going to be celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary. And we had booked a cruise. And I was experiencing also some heartburn, especially really bad at night. And I lay down and it would get worse. And my wife said, you should probably go to the doctor. And I was, okay. And I was going to go like day before we were leaving our trip. And well, I got a what for on that one. And I changed the appointment, went. And when my GP was very good, he sent me for an EKG. And when he asked me to come back up before he prescribed me any antacid medicine, and he looked it over and he compared it to a previous one that he had done. He'd done some baseline on me many years ago. When he compared my baseline EKG to my next one, he went, there's a problem and you need to go to emergency now. And he said, when you go, don't let them send you home. make sure they do some testing, some serious testing. Don't let them give you some pills and send you out the door. Get some testing done. And I went and spent many, many hours. Long story short, after a lot of fighting and arguing, got them to do some testing the next day. They put me through a stress test, and I failed within the first minute and a half. Then things changed, and it became very serious. And they rushed me in for an angiogram, and the angiogram showed that I had an artery that was like 98% blocked. So they put in a stent. And so we thought, okay, we got this. That was the problem. And went on, and I figured I was going to go on my cruise, and my doctor didn't want me to go, but we did go. And we celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary on the cruise, and my problems didn't seem to have gone away. I was being medicated, and I thought maybe it was just the medication, but it wasn't. When we got back, I kept realizing that, this still hasn't gone away. That time they were doing testing on me because now they realized, hey, they went back in again, checked the stent, see if it moved, see if it collapsed. None of that had happened. They couldn't understand why, and lots of testing was being done, but it was very difficult. The cardiologist at the time was having difficulty getting extra testing done because they were being more reactive rather than proactive. And so she was very good. And at the end of the day, I also started searching, and that's when I found it on the internet and found the HCMA organization. And at that time, I went in for another test. And when they came back, she said to me, I think you have HCM. And I had found that on the internet, and then she had told me, and I was like, okay. And then I made contact with the organization. I met the most wonderful person I know today, which is Lisa Salberg. So,
you do know.
And from there, my life changed drastically. And without the HCMA, I don't know if I'd be here today.
So I can't wait to hear about that part, but let's go back for just a minute. And let's think about, you looked us up, you looked HCM up online, doctor then says HCM. So you're feeling pretty confident that this is your diagnosis. This is the explanation for why you've been feeling like you've been feeling. Take us back to that moment of realization. Was it scary? Was it settling to have an answer to a name to what was bothering you? What were you feeling when the diagnosis became clear?
When I look back now, I felt very numb. It was so big. It was tough to
process.
Yeah, very tough to process at that time.
You're pretty eloquent with your explanations, and they're unvarnished. They're just your experience. And this is one of the things I love about you. You just say what you're thinking and feeling. So you're in your late 40s. 50 is like right around the corner. You get this big name diagnosis. You have to have good critical thinking skills. You built a business, right?
Yes.
You had to make a lot of tough decisions, personal decisions in your life. You have children, you're married, you have a home. You have all of these things that you've built and you've had to think about. And now a diagnosis is smacked in your face when you're a man with all of this responsibility, all these people that you're caring for and responsible for, your wife, your children, your staff, your customers. Like, you have all of these people that are looking to you. And then all of a sudden your heart isn't great.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we forget that we have to be that other person that we already are while we're dealing with this new information about a new diagnosis that most people don't really understand.
Yeah.
And oftentimes when we say, oh, I have heart disease to people, they're like, what'd you eat? Didn't exercise enough, huh? You're the fault. You're the problem. They're blaming the victim, when in fact HCM is a genetic disorder and we were basically just born like this. So with all of that context and the who Dino was then with this new information, Can you tell me what it's like for a man to be in that situation? What were you thinking? How did it make you feel?
I guess it's like any other challenge. And you described that very well, Lisa. So many challenges, so many decisions when you own a business and when you're responsible for people and their wages and their life, because they're counting on you. Is the way I always did it was you just gotta bear down and you just say, I've gotta pull this apart one piece at a time. And I can't take more than that. I'm just gonna go one step at a time. And I didn't have time for emotions or feelings at that time.
So you were a bit numb.
Yeah. So it made it difficult, but what it did was I just said, apply what you know, work at it, and just tear one at a time and deal with it. And that's what I had to do, just one block at a time. And that's what I did. And I found a process that I could deal with and think about it later. So today, when I think about it, I have time for the emotions, which I didn't then.
I try to tell people in the first 2 years of diagnosis, you don't even realize what you're going through while you're in the middle of going through it. You're just getting day by day a little bit of information. Okay, I learned this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to take this med. I'm going to do this surgery. I'm going to do this. And you figure out what you're going to do. And then you figure out how to live the rest of your life. But it takes a good 2 years, I think, to do that. Yeah. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, everything was happening. My life was changing, first passing out, what was this? I've never passed out in my life from nothing, anything. And to having that happen. And then 2019 getting a stent and then going, okay, well, this should correct things. And then 2021, now open heart surgery. And you're like, whoa.
That escalated quickly.
It's big.
Yeah.
And then, how do I get through this? How do I get back to my business? But, every day you just tackle it.
You got to show up.
You keep fighting and you keep being your own advocate, because at the end of the day, the only person you have is yourself.
So let's talk about that for a second. Now, you are in Manitoba, Canada. One of the places in North America that I've not been yet. So I hope to get there someday.
Come on down.
I hope it's up and over. It's that way. So someday I'll get out there. I can imagine it's a beautiful country.
It's very beautiful.
Yeah, we'll get there someday. Anyway, I digress. So you're out in Manitoba. Where did you find care for your HCM?
So I searched on, as I mentioned, became a follower on the group of HCMA, logged on, and started just watching and reading. And saw this lady on there, Lisa Salberg, and then other people I started to see on there, Julie. And then I thought, there's a lot of American people on the site. I need to find somebody Canadian. And I started putting in my own messages. And a gentleman in Grand Falls, New Brunswick, named Leroy McCarthy was a Canadian. And I started chatting with him. And he became my angel. And
I love your relationship with Leroy. I mean,
he is so fantastic. Him and his wife, oh my God, his whole family is so fantastic. And I just so enjoy our times together. And we've become such incredible friends. And I started talking to him about what was happening. And then it went from messages to phone calls. I'm amazed after all this time. It's still so tough.
It is, but that's the being genuine, and that's the being real. And I think part of why I do the podcast are so that somebody will find themselves in somebody else. And by that, I mean, I'm a white chick from the suburbs of Jersey. Not everybody's going to relate with my lived experience. You're around my age. You're a little younger, brat, but you live in a completely different part of the world. You're living a different life, you're a different gender, you have a different life experience. And when you explain this to people, that there's this commonality in the experience, but we all have our own angles. Wow, that's powerful. And you'll connect with somebody and you'll make a difference in their life. And you may never know that person. So let's talk a little bit about your surgical experience. How did you end up at surgery? And what role did Leroy play in helping you get through that moment?
The role Leroy played is 9 months prior to my surgery. He had had the same surgery. So it was so incredible to discuss the symptoms and how it went and where he had it. And because he had the surgery at the same hospital that I was looking at going to, it was so instrumental, and it just took the height from this so down to help me understand the process and what I'd be going through and to know what to expect. Because things escalated so fast, I actually didn't get the opportunity to go and join a lot of the other seminars and webinars that there were to help people, because it moves so fast along. And that's all due to the HCMA organization and Lisa helping me get to where I needed to be very fast and in such a short time. Things sometimes just seem to be moving so fast that I didn't have time for anything else to think about it, really. I remember talking to you, Lisa. We were having trouble getting approval for me to get down to Toronto. It was amazing what you were planning to do to help me. And I was just like, can you believe what this lady who I've just met is trying to do to help me? It was overwhelming. And at the last minute, I got the call that I got my approval. And I was off to Toronto. And I believe you had something to do with that somehow, Lisa. You're amazing. And thank you. And the process of going down to Toronto, I thought, well, I'll go down for the meeting. We'll see what's going to happen. And, I'll come back. We'll evaluate. We'll have time. And long story short, I get down to Toronto. I went and I had my wife on FaceTime and went through all the testing and trials. And the next morning, very early, I meet with the surgeon and the doctor, and I got my wife on FaceTime, and the doc walks in and he says, so you need surgery now. And I'm like, what? And my wife was on the phone, and I remember turning the phone, looking, and she had the same look that I did. It was shock. They asked if I could stay, and because I own my own business, they want to do it right there and then. And I said, I have to go back. I have to get some things in order. And I had no clue. So went to Winnipeg and got things in order. And I was back in Toronto in less than 2 weeks, and it was December 15th. It was 10 days.
What year was this?
2021. December 15th, 2021, 10 days before Christmas. I was going to be in Toronto for Christmas. I still can't believe that. On December 17th, I had my septomyectomy, spent my time recovering, and I knew immediately that I was better after the surgery. I could just tell I could breathe easier. It was incredible. Long recovery. I was there until December 30th was the first day I walked out of the hospital. Well, no, I walked out of the hospital on December 25th to go back to the hotel, and I stayed in Toronto until the 30th and then flew back home and was back home on December 30th and started my recovery. What a journey. And Leroy was there every step of the way, talking to me and supporting me. And there's so much. And I mean, it was just so nice to have somebody to be able to go back to all the time to say, sorry to bother you again, Leroy, but I have this question now. That's when we formed our strongest bond. And I shared with him that after this was all said and I was all healed, we were getting together because I needed to meet him.
And not only did you guys get together, but you guys did like some pretty significant travel together.
We had a blast.
I enjoyed watching it on Facebook.
It was phenomenal. He asked me if I wanted to go to a concert. Now, we really didn't know each other than through medical. He asked me if I wanted to go to a concert, and I said, well, I don't do many concerts, but what do you think? And he goes, well, I'd like to go see this guy Jelly Roll. I went, Jelly Roll? I didn't understand. And I looked the guy up, and I was like, well, I don't know. And Jelly Roll at that time was not that popular. And it was unbelievable. And I said, you know what? Try new things. And I said, let's do it. Well, that has so much meaning for us today. and how successful he's gone. And it just ties in so significantly to our relationship, to our healing, and to growth, to have watched him grow. I mean, I'm one of his biggest fans today, Jelly Roll, and it's all thanks to Leroy and that.
We'll tag Jelly Roll in this edition of Tales from the Heart. Jelly Roll, how about a benefit concert? Come on.
Yeah, I think he would be such an excellent spokesperson for HCMA. I think he would just be fantastic. I mean, there's a lot of people that look to him for healing in many different ways. And if you know his story, that's what he's about. He's about helping people. If you get the opportunity, you should take in one of his concerts, because you will become a believer and it'll become a part of you.
I've never seen him in concert. I have found his music quite deep, and like the lyrics actually touch you.
When he's in concert and just seeing him, when he speaks to the audience, the attention he gets from the people is overwhelming, because he knows everybody's there to deal with something. And it's just so amazing how he addresses it. He's really a very, very different kind of person. Take it in. I will go see him again, where if he ever makes it to Canada, or if I've got to go back to the US to see him, then
Got to go back to the US. You make it sound like it's such a treacherous thing.
No, it's beautiful. I love the US.
And we love Canada. So we're all in good shape. Actually, I'm going to Montreal this summer.
Oh,
I love Montreal. It's kind of like Europe on the continent.
maybe you get a chance to meet Leroy. He'll drive up and see you. It's not far. It's only 3 hours from him.
Only 3 hours. Okay.
He loves driving.
He loves driving. Okay, we'll have to check that. Leroy, call me. We'll fix this up. And then my other big-hearted folks up in Montreal. But okay, so you have your myectomy. You go through your recovery. You found a buddy through the community. You develop almost like a sibling-like relationship with him, and we've all watched it grow. And now you've stepped up to volunteer some time to the HCMA as well. You're wearing your HCMA Ambassador t-shirt now. So you're one of our ambassadors, and you're also a newly minted moderator of the Facebook group of now 11,300 people. Whoa. Mind-boggling. What does it mean to you to share your story, to give back, to explain to others?
The sharing is, to me, and the way I was brought up, I mean, it's second nature. I have to do this. If I can save or help somebody get in the right direction, you have to do it. Mm-hmm. I don't know how you couldn't. It's just, I don't see any other way other than, something that's so rare and goes misdiagnosed so many times for people, that it's people like us that are going to make that change and get the healthcare systems to finally react and do more, because they are missing the boat so many times. I've already seen by reading posts and blogs from people and stories of, wow, that's similar to mine. And it doesn't happen just in Canada and in the U.S. It's all over the world. And so if I can help someone, definitely I'm going to do it. If I can help more than one, I want to help as many as I can. You're the inspiration, Lisa.
I do resonate with a lot of what you just said there. Like there's that when my sister passed, there was like, well, I have to do something. I set off on this path. And every day I'm like, well, I have to do something. I have to do something. I have to fix something. And I'm just so thrilled to have so many wonderful ambassadors, volunteers, and staff members now. Like we can help so many more people. We get so many more diagnosed. And therapies are so much better than they used to be.
Yes, in so many ways, I feel like a soldier. I have to go and do my duty. So I got to do it as best as I possibly can, as long as I possibly can. There's just no other way. And I don't know where I'd be today without this organization. It just, my story may not have continued on. And
that is why the organization is here, to keep families whole as long as possible. And, I look back in my own family history, and I've talked to over 20,000 people with HCM at this point, 20,000 families, I would say. When you start looking at the family histories and you see, well, this one died at this age and this one died at that age. And you see them a lot in the previous generation to ours. A lot of these people were dying in their late 40s to early 60s. And then they find out, oh, well, they had HCM and it was unmanaged. So gone in the misdiagnosed or the undiagnosed, this is still a very serious disease. And if you don't get a hold of it, bad things can happen. But it's 2024. While some people may say, there's so much going wrong in the world, and there is. But in our little world, there's a lot going right. And while there's turmoil and polarization of opinions in the HCM community, we have new drugs that are targeted not to use on people like us. This is just to use on people that are us. It's not heart disease, it's HCM treatment. And for people who were afraid to get diagnosed because they thought it meant, shortened life and defibrillators only and open heart surgery only, there's so many options now available. It's really amazing to me. I just came back from Lisbon, Portugal, where there was a conference and they showed the new data on the cytokinetics drug aficamten. With all due respect to the mavacamten discovery, it was amazing. It's milestone moments in HCM history. But this second in class that's coming, the first gets it right, the second refines it, and it gets more and more refined. And then we figure out who's going to benefit the most from these meds. There's more coming behind that. There's gene therapy. There's RNA modulated for certain mutations that I'm just learning about and I don't fully understand yet, but I'll get there and I'll tell everybody about it later. There's so much going on. SGLT1, SGLT2 use of, they're using it in heart failure. They're going to use it in HCM. So people who were afraid to get diagnosed because they didn't like all the therapies that were available at the time, there's so much more available.
Yeah. Lisa, just from the time since I was diagnosed to today, how fast things have progressed. It really blows my mind. And I hope I pronounce this correctly. Camzyos.
Camzyos, yeah.
Was in development and, I was headed for surgery and it wasn't released yet. And today it's released and today it's on its second gen. And there's just so much more happening. Like you say, it's nice to see that progress is happening faster and faster. And that maybe one day through the work of the HCMA and your work that you've done tirelessly, Lisa, it's going to be a lot more straightforward for people to go in, oh, this is what you have and here's how we deal with it. It's going to be that much easier. Maybe there won't be a day that you need to go in for a septomyectomy. Maybe it's going to be done another way that isn't as invasive as it is when we...
The sesame procedure, yeah.
Yes. So... It is very encouraging. And another reason why I want to stay a part of this organization. And like I say, the organization saved my life. How do you pay somebody back for that?
Dino, when I let myself hear comments like that, you may have noticed that I grin and nod a lot. Okay, thanks. Okay, thanks. It's too emotional. It really is. I'm a chick from Jersey who had a bit of an attitude as a teenager. Didn't think much of the education system because it had not treated me well. I'm actually thinking about that the other day. They're talking about how you educate children today and how they're so aware of everything that's going on. Yeah, nobody understood me as a student. And I would be in class with chest pain and feeling like I was going to pass out. And they're like, why aren't you focusing on the math assignment? I'm like, I can't breathe.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was a kid doing this all on my own. And I felt very othered. I felt very ignored. And when my sister died in 95, I felt a lot of that othered and alone again thing. And I'm like, we don't have to be othered and alone. We have people just like us out there. If I could just find a few of them. I was so excited when our first database hit 200 patients. That was 1997. I was so excited. I had actually talked to 200 people with HCM. I can do that in an afternoon now. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
so we've grown and I have had to take all my HR stuff and skills and figure out, okay, if everybody wants to help, how do I get them to help and how do we build this bigger? The ambassador program, by sharing your story and just sharing on social media and educating people and inspiring people and letting them see it's not all terrible. We live pretty normal lives. We got to go to the doctors more and we need some pills and surgeries, but we're okay. For Christ's sakes, I haven't had a transplant and I'm back here working. I just climbed to the top of a castle in Sintra, Portugal. I made it up the hill and I walked in a castle. Okay, my foot hurt, but that's a whole other story. But it was amazing. And you say, I'm here and others are not. And it doesn't mean I don't think about them an awful lot and that I don't feel an obligation to them to make this better. To those we've lost, to the families who've unwittingly, unknowingly had a family member with HCM and found out only after they died. Nobody should find out that way. The next great frontier, is really doubling down on finding the undiagnosed. We have to do more. We have to get the story out there. We've got to talk about our signs and our symptoms. We've got to talk about family heart health history. We have to get the story spread far and wide so that we can move into the next generation of finding and treating and inspiring new patients for that very delicate first 2 years. Okay, I have got to get off to another live podcast now. So I'm going to wrap for now with Dino, and I am going to say thank you so much for sharing your story. And this hopefully will not be the only time we talk on podcast. We'll have you come back. Maybe you and Leroy should come back and talk about that special.
Absolutely. We need to do that.
Okay. You get him wrangled in.
Okay. I'll get him wrangled in because he's going to be here in June. It's all booked.
Oh, perfect. So
he's coming in June with his wife to visit. And we've got another fantastic week planned of the stuff we're going to be doing. We're going to head to my cottage. Maybe we'll do it from there. Maybe we'll do it from my home. I don't know, but we've got access to do it both places. But I really would like to do that.
That would be great. Talk to Julie about dates and let's get that on the calendar.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
So everybody stay tuned for chapter 2 with Dino and Leroy and hear about this very special friendship, which I just think is adorable. So Dino, thanks for joining us on Tales from the Heart, a podcast from the HCMA.
Lisa, thank you so much for everything and saving my life.
It took a whole village and you've got a great system up there at Toronto with the HCM program. So I'm glad that your heart was well cared for.
Going to see them in September, actually.
I just saw Anna and Raymond a couple weeks ago. So good people.
Yeah, very good people.
Shout out to our Canadian friends. We love you.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Thanks.
The Hypertrophic Cardiomyopathy Association takes this time to thank our corporate sponsors, Bristol Myers Squibb, Cytokinetics, BioMarin, and Tenaya Therapeutics.